All right, so a lot of I've done a number of poems that are like what I call praise poems. Praise poems, by definition, have to be really long, right? So don't worry, I'm not going to read you any of those. But I did one for my father, and it's called Pop's Song, of course. What else would you do? But I want to read a couple of excerpts from it. So I'll tell you about the poem first, and then I'll explain the first excerpt, and then read that. So in this poem, it's quite long, like I say, but I spend the first page and a half, A4 pages, about me and how hard this job is, and how I don't know what to do, and I could try and do this, or I could do that, or do that, and I could rhyme up a lot about how I'm feeling and thinking about trying to write about my dad. And then I cottoned on to a way to do this. Tell their story of their marriage through my mother's eyes. I use my mother's voice to talk about their first meeting and their life up until the present time when they're both quite old and my dad is fading. So now this first excerpt has got two bits. It's called Honeymoon, and then 3260 Royal. And one follows the other. Honeymoon is actually, you saw the pictures. Okay, I saw those pictures and I wrote this bit about that. My parents grew up in and lived in Detroit, Michigan, in the South Detroit area. Working class, my mom very poor. And they got married and they probably left the state for the first time. And they did a road trip from Detroit to New Orleans. That's like no freeways or motorways or anything, and so it must have been quite a massive adventure for them. So massive, I think, that they took my dad's big brother, Uncle Jim, and my dad's big sister's son, the nephew, Raymond. He was about 12 years old, 4 of them in his class. Now, Michigan is a nice place, but the problem, if you want to go south, the first thing you got to do is drive through Ohio, right? So their route takes them through Ohio and then to the Smoky Mountains in Kentucky and Tennessee. That's Honeymoon. Then I'm going to move on to 3260 Royal. Go straight on to that. That's the house my dad built for us. Like I said, they lived in South Detroit. We ended up buying plots of land about 40 miles northwest of Detroit. And so after work, he would, and on weekends, he'd go out and build this house. And he'd do the plans and dig the trenches. And that was when you dig footings with a shovel, right? So it was a lot of work, a lot of evenings, a lot of weekends, and so on. And you get the house, and it's quite a long drive for them, and out in the country, they're city people. Anyways, you get the house to is just habitable. You've got the wood frame house, and it's all plywood on the outside. Then they cover it in what they would call then tar paper, black tar paper. So you've heard the phrase tar paper shack, maybe, have you? It's a kind of, it means like poor rural life. You're living in a tar paper shack. So you have the tar paper, and then you put siding over it. Okay, so it's not supposed to stay like that, but some people will just leave it like that. So anyways, that was the first impression of my mom's family, especially her big brother, Uncle Midor, whose voice was as big as he was, and he was loud, and he's saying, he drove out there 40 miles to the country, his little country roads, and said, "You're out in the sticks living in a tar paper shack, for Christ's sakes!" So that's, we'll do these two first. Honeymoon and 3260 Royal. Looking out the window of a big car going straight and fast. Headed south beneath the sky too blue and way too vast. Down roads as boring and as flat as pancakes. Put your foot down, why don't you, for God's sakes? Just how many miles of corn have we drove past? Big hills rearing up with little smoky clouds hanging, just like they say. The car climbs smoothly up curves that make you crane, swoon, and sway. We stop at the top where you can see 4 miles. He climbs up a rock and turns and smiles, and what I see through the camera just takes my breath away. A tar paper shack surrounded by trees down a bumpy dirt track, all covered in leaves, while he works away at his own preferred pace until every half brick is in just the right place. Additions and remodeling year after year. There's no point in bothering you nag, but he don't seem to hear. The rail fence finally goes up, and the round flower gardens at last in. The maples are lined up, and their leaves are red again. Somehow and in time, the dream becomes real. A sturdy red brick home with a steady